I'm Barry Penhale. Sketches of Our Town is a series that uncovers the history and stories of Canada's smaller communities. Won't you join me each week on our trail of discovery as we move from village to town to city? Coming up on Sketches is a focus on Leamington, Ontario, the tomato capital of Canada.
Many towns that I savor, like my hometown that I favor, that old place down the long road that I'm traveling to. There's the jokes at the barber, told by Cleve from the hardware, about the stories that always make the news. Our town, wherever I may roam, I'll always have a place that I call home. Our town, it's very plain to see, there'll always be a part of you in me.
The moderating influence of the water, productive soil, and location on the same latitude as Northern California are all factors that combined make this region truly unique. Hello, I'm Barry Penhale. By following Highway number 3, the old historic Talbot Trail named after Colonel Thomas Talbot, I now find myself in Leamington. This entire area is steeped in the history associated with Lake Erie, one of the last of the Great Lakes to be discovered. Point Pelee and Pelee Island, both close by, are historically tied to Leamington, neighbors in what is Canada's most southerly vacation land. Through the centuries, Lake Erie has been friend and foe to those who have plied the waters and lived along her shores. The fourth largest, she is the most feared of the five sisters, the Great Lakes. Her temper is short, with shallow waters rising to a stormy sea with little warning. This southwestern part of Ontario bordering Erie, including the counties of Essex and Kent, was not explored until late in the history of Canada. This was in part due to the fierceness of the Iroquois Indians who inhabited the area, as well as the fact that trading routes were already established to the north along the Ottawa River through to the upper Great Lakes. After the battles between the British and French for North American supremacy, the area was left to be developed by the British. The eccentric Irishman, Colonel Talbot, in support of Lord Simcoe, pushed a settlement road through the area in 1814, following an old Indian trail. The tiny village of Wilkinson's Corners evolved, the seed of present-day Leamington. Among the group of disbanded troops and loyalists who first settled here were German Hessian soldiers who had fought with the British against the American rebels. Also, the pacifist Pennsylvania Dutch Mennonites, who were branded as siding with the British because they would not support the American Revolution. The names Fox, Whittle, Weigel, McGaw, and Scratch became prominent in the area. The early pioneers cleared the land of one of the thickest forests in North America and reclaimed more than 5,000 acres of swampland. By the early 1900s, the area was rich in crops of peaches, peanuts, grapes, cotton, and tobacco. The age of early photography, preserved through these postcards, tells of the transformation of the town by the turn of the century. An aggressive and unified population responded to an opportunity to attract an industry to this lush, growing region, an industry that would have a major and lasting effect to this day. A native of Leamington, Bill Gunn, recounted to me the story of tomato growing and the H.J. Heinz Company.
One of the reasons there's so much sand here, as the very sand we're standing in, was that historically, that at a period in the Ice Age, this entire county of Essex was the bottom of a glacial lake. And I guess that's why we're so lucky that we have such great sand soil that we do. And I think some of that is why Mr. Heinz, the original founder of our company, who started the company in Pittsburgh in 1869, I think one of the reasons that he and the advisors selected this area as an ideal place to grow tomatoes in Canada was that on this north shore of Lake Erie, particularly along the counties of Essex and Kent, along the shoreline, they have a very relatively long frost-free period. When you think these farmers are out on the ground in April, they're out on their land and they're still harvesting nearly to Thanksgiving. So this has a long period of frost-free. That's why it's so conducive to tomatoes. When you think back in 1907, a group of businessmen in this community wanted a factory to locate here. And they'd heard about the success of young Henry J. Heinz, who came out of Pittsburgh and had started the beginning of a great food company in the United States. So a group of them contacted him and talked to him about building a factory here. And as part of that inducement, there was a former tobacco plant. It was the Ward Tobacco Company. And that 6-story frame building, which was abandoned, the council said, well, if we bought that building and gave it to the Heinz Company, would they use that as a basis of coming to Leamington? So in 1908, there was a ballot, a referendum to the town of Leamington. And it was passed by a vote of 555 people for it and only 18 dissenting votes. And it gave the council the right to invest $10,000 to buy that abandoned plant. It gave the company a commitment of 20 years of free taxes, with the exception of school taxes, and 20 years of free water. And in return, we promised that we would take the harvest of 400 acres of land, the produce from 400 acres, for at least 5 years. So what we always say, what's good for this part of Ontario is also good for Canada.
When one witnesses the extent of this industry, it is easier to comprehend its importance as a keystone in the economic stability and development of the community since that first initiative was put forward in 1908. Well, they weren't kidding when they said I would find the world's largest tomato at the corners of Talbot and Fox Street. At the information booth, one can pick up printed material on Leamington and the surrounding area. Leamington is very distinctive from other towns that I have visited in that it retains a European charm and tradition. One can hear many dialects spoken in its downtown shopping core, the Four Corners intersection of Talbot and Erie Streets. A relatively steady economy through the years, based on the food industry, has contributed to the vitality of the retail sector. Several businesses have been ongoing for generations. Jackson's China and Furniture Store is a landmark, and the son of the original owner has earned the title Dean of Leamington's Merchants.
I'm Foster Jackson. I was born in the town of Leamington in 1892, and I lived here all my life. I went to school, first in a little school across the road from my home, which was at that time where the Woolworth store is now. And then I went to the Mill Street School, and after I finished that, went to the high school, in the old high school that at that time was on the south side, opposite the present high school. And in 1914, and when I graduated from there, that's when I entered the store, definitely. We put furniture in to make it a little bigger store than it was before. My father interested me an awful lot influenced me an awful lot in how I grew up in Leamington, because he bought us boats, he bought us everything to enjoy the lake with, and we summered on the point for years, and we camped at Bell's Point, we camped at the park at Seacliff Park. He was that kind of a man, and I think it grew up. I enjoyed my life all through my time other than Leamington. I go to the store practically over for an hour and a half every afternoon, or just as I say, to draw my pay.
At the foot of Erie Street, I was to explore another of the intriguing stories of this area. At what was originally called Weigel's Dock, I boarded the ferry Upper Canada, which would transport me to Pelee Island, whose history has been irrevocably tied to that of Leamington. A great deal of freight was shipped from this dock in the 1800s, particularly lumber, tobacco, and farm produce, as water was the main access to markets. As we sailed out of Pigeon Bay, I was reminded of the many aspects of this region that are unparalleled. The name of this bay was suggested by the recorded numbers of passenger pigeons that flocked here as late as the 1850s. Their number, in the millions, was so great that they broke tree branches with their combined weight on landing. By the early 1900s, passenger pigeons were extinct due to the carelessness of man. Jutting out into the lake is Point Pelee National Park. World-renowned as a naturalist paradise, it is home to over 250 bird species, rare trees, unknown to other parts of Canada, including tulip trees, Kentucky coffee trees, pawpaw, and redbird, are also found. The most well-known story related to the wildlife of the area is that of the Jack Miner Migratory Bird Sanctuary. Miner, recognized as the father of conservation, developed a sanctuary for the Canada goose at nearby Kingsville. The story is legendary, Miner being one of the first to ban birds so that their migratory paths could be charted. We arrived at Scudder Dock, where at one time Stone quarried from the island was prepared for transportation to the construction site of the Welland Canal. The permanent residents of Pelee Island are involved in various activities connected with the lake and the land. Being aware of the productive vineyards, I focused my attention on that aspect of the island's history. Ron Thiessen and his wife, active in the grape industry, were helpful in outlining the history of viticulture and the day-to-day experience of living on Pelee Island.
The grape industry, as far as we know, began on Pelee Island with the arrival of 3 gentlemen from the Kentucky area, Thaddeus Smith and 2 Williams brothers, and they brought viticulture to Pelee in 1866. And it then, of course, took a decade or so until a substantial vineyard had been planted, not just by by Smith and the Williams brothers, but by others as well, the Wardropers, the Finley family, and eventually those 3 families had wineries on the island that we know of. The total acreage probably amounted to not a lot more than 400 acres or something like that at the time. It appears to have been in around about the year 1870, the most serious commercial winery in Canada. So it's some indication as to the extent of the industry at that time. A number of the advantages of growing grapes on Pelee center about the presence of the water around the island here. In the springtime, for example, the coolness of the water will delay the budding somewhat, and at the same time, that presence of that water precludes a serious frost after budding. And the other advantage is in the fall, where the water moderates, and we get that long season during which the vine can harden, and of course the grapes can mature slowly. All the grapes on the island at present are vinifera grapes. There are a few French hybrids that have been planted in the last year, but primarily vinifera. The ones in which we're standing right here are Scheuerrebe, which is a grape, I believe, that is a cross between Sylvaner and Riesling and is at home in southern Austria, apparently. The other grapes in this vineyard are Riesling, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Chardonnay. The community is well demarcated, being an island, and as a result, there's no question as to whether, what community or, where the focus is. And it's not just that, it's that being on an island cements the experience of all the people that live here.
There are more fascinating stories yet to be told. I realized it would take several return trips to satisfy my curiosity about Pelee Island, Leamington's historic neighbor. Leamington today is made up of an interesting mix of cultures and languages. Together with the arrival of Loyalists, Germans, and Mennonites, a foundation was created from which the community grew. Town fathers, such as Louis Weigel, John McRobbie Selkirk, John McR as he was called, nurtured the growth of the fledgling community. That early entrepreneurial spirit that pursued and succeeded in its goals of attracting industry has not been forgotten. People from many nationalities call Leamington home and have contributed much to its development as a friendly place to live. Following World War I, a pattern of immigration began from Italy. In fact, the Italian village of Villa Canali was nearly emptied, when its residents followed the dream of a new life in Canada. The Italian influence and contribution is recognized by this landmark, located in the center of town. Leamington, the most cosmopolitan community outside of Toronto, has strong representation from Portuguese, Greek, Lebanese, Mexican, Italian, and Dutch. The people of the town take pride in their heritage, rich in cultural traditions. The Leamington Tomato Festival is a colorful and exciting event which takes place every August. Area residents, young and old alike, prepare to celebrate the long-standing tradition of a harvest festival. As a town's main street is its center stage, a parade must therefore represent the theater of the community. In my mind, the celebration offered by Leamington is truly significant of a town steeped in the richness of her beginnings.
I'll see the folks up on Main Street who will always take the time for a story over coffee at the old Five and Dime. The flag on our town hall through the years has flown free, a tribute to our hometown's history. Have a place that I call home. Our town, it's very plain to see. There'll always be a part of you in me. There'll always be a part of you in me. There'll always